Hey guys,
It's Chesney. Excellent.
Chesney, good day.
Good
Volume
day to
on.
you both.
Welcome, Chesney. And that, listeners, dear listeners, is the voice of Mr. Chesney Hawkes. I'm going to resist saying Chesney, the one and only. Oh, no, I failed to resist saying that. But
Only
You
for the
just said it.
millionth
You just
time,
bloody said
Charles.
it.
I haven't. I can only apologize. Chesney, welcome. You're speaking to Charles Hutchinson and to the voice of Graham.
Graham
Hello, guys.
Chalmers. Hello.
And
Hello,
we
Chesney.
we co-host Chesney, two big egos in one car, in a small car at that. There's always room for another ego, no matter what size it is. We're not fussy, and it's a pleasure actually, Chesney, to speak to you. This is ahead, just listeners, partly because there's a new album out, but also partly listeners because you've got two opportunities to go to see Chesney. In concert. This is going to be at the Leeds Brudenell Social Club on March the 12th, first of all,
Correct.
and also in Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, Barnsley. Now it says
Birdwell.
it's called the Birdwell venue. I don't know whether that means it's actually called the Birdwell and it's a venue, or whether
Yeah.
it's genuinely called the Birdwell venue.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't really know either, but I think there's a very interesting question to put out to your listeners.
Yes, because they made that. Now, that one is on the 15th
Of
of
March.
March, and there are plenty more gigs around the country as well. So,
Yes.
welcome, Chesney, and it's fair to say you are a familiar face actually for a long, long time. Um, Rooted, it's fair to say, of course, in one very famous hit. Not many people have a number one single. You did
Yeah, I
right at
certainly
the
did.
start,
Yeah.
aged 19. And we'll come on to what's happening now. But I mean, just reflect on that. Having such a massive hit, 5 weeks at number one at
Yeah.
the age of 19 with the accompanying film. I think it was Buddy's Song, I think the film was called from memory,
Yep.
wasn't it?
That's
So
right. Yeah.
how did that feel at that time? Because that's extraordinary in its own way.
Yeah. I mean, as you say, I was quite young, so it was an interesting thing to happen to a young kid like that. But I grew up in a rock and roll household,
Yes,
so
you did.
yeah, my father was the lead singer of the Tremolos,
Yep.
and all of his friends were all musicians, and some of them
Mm.
famous. Jerry Marsden was
Yeah.
a constant figure in our house. Bands like the Marmalade and Searchers and Herman's Hermits and stuff. So all of my dad's mates were they had some kind of success and fame and stuff. So when it came to my time, it almost felt like kind of passing the baton, and I was quite a precocious kid, I guess, and I just thought like, oh, so it's my time. Okay, right. Here
Yeah.
we go. This is what happens when you put records out. So,
Absolutely. I mean, there's a kind of Kim Wilde style thing there, isn't there? Of course,
oh yeah, yeah,
the
we have
kind
that
of
in common.
the next generation, and
Yeah.
which I guess actually would probably help you deal with what goes with that. But this is now you're
Mm.
now 54, and so
A
it's been
a very
it's been a
youthful
long
looking
time.
54,
In fact, yeah,
Charles.
Graham and I are looking very jealous at that,
Mm.
Chesney, by the way. So here you are all these years later, after 10 years in Los Angeles as well, which I mean, was that recently at an end then? Have you come
Yeah.
back from there recently?
Yeah, we moved over there in 2012, came back just last year. So 12 years,
12 years.
yeah,
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah.
And no, it's good to be back, though, I have to say.
Mm.
It was a good excursion, a good
Mm.
12-year excursion. I did a lot of writing over there.
Yeah.
I had a studio right on Ventura Boulevard, so a
Lovely.
lot of people come in and out my doors. I was writing and producing for other people and mentoring young artists and things like that.
Mm.
And it was a great time. And I feel like I kind of went over there, discovered myself a bit more, got away from the kind of the fame stuff from over here just for a little bit as the kids were growing up, and became kind of I was just dad, because
Sure.
that was their
Sure.
formative years really.
Yeah.
And
Three
yeah,
children. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Well, they're not children anymore, but
No.
yeah. but they, I'm so glad we did it, and I'm so glad I'm back. Put
Absolutely.
it
Yeah.
that way.
Graham.
Yeah, I'd like to apologize to Chesney for underrating and underplaying the one and only, because I remember seeing him in 1991 with his choir boy looks and floppy blonde hair and thinking like, what's this pop rubbish? But then I was interviewing Tony Moore, who was the original keyboard player with Iron Maiden last week, and he toured with Cutting Crew for 2 years during the period of I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight. And I suddenly
Yeah.
realized that, wait a minute, I don't really like Cutting Crew, and I didn't listen to Chesney much at the time. But 30 years later, I remember how The One Only goes, and I
Mm.
remember how I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight goes. And surely that means they're both good songs, because if you can remember a song 30 years later, by definition, it's a very good song.
I like that it took 35 years for you to
Yeah.
come round to that realization.
The snail of pop. Who
Yeah, I do
knew?
apologize.
Graham, a question.
Yes, your question. Yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, but playing Living Arrow, which is Living Arrows, which is very good.
Mm.
It was BBC Radio 2's album of the week. You've been in tour with James Blunt. It was co-produced by Jake Gosling, who co-wrote some of the songs, and so did Nick Kershaw, who also wrote The One and Only.
Mm.
You did the BBC Radio 2 Piano Room, which is
Yeah.
a big thing to do because it's purely music based. There's no flim flam or showbiz. And
Mm.
I watched it, and it was really fantastic. You did a great version of Toto's Africa, and you're like a serious musician after all these years. But at the same time, you still turn up on Celebrity Big Brother and
Yeah.
Michael McIntyre's Big Show and Celebrity Master Chef, which I saw. And so you become actually good at everything, which is quite a
Is that
strange
is that a
thing.
question, Graham, or a statement?
Well, I don't know. Haven't got a clue. But
No.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm
so
somehow
I think
managing to
yeah,
kind
there's
of
a lot more to chess than it meets the eye. Is what
yeah,
I'm
well,
trying to say.
maybe, yeah, yeah. I'm somehow managing to kind of balance being a, songwriter, musician, and all
Mm.
that from where I came from, and also being a chef and an ice dancing. I don't know. These days, it's weird. I mean, I'm just like I'm in that kind of like say yes kind of mode,
Mm.
and because I've kind of I've always had this little thing in my brain, like that. I grew up in a rock and roll, household, and kind of
Mm.
around music and around people playing live all the time. And I always thought if I was going to make it as in this business, it would be as part of a band, and because I write songs and because I play music, and because so, so the way that it happened, and I'm going back to what you were saying about how you weren't sure about me and all that kind of stuff from the beginning. Mainly it was because you listen to great music and you like real artists, and I came along and the record company kind of promoted me as this floppy head pop star, heartthrob kind of thing, and it's like of course an artist like that can't really be making great music. Surely not. He's just a puppet. And I get that. I understand it because I feel that way sometimes myself about some
Mm.
artists. It's not the way I planned it. I always thought it would work a different way. And life never really kind of comes at you the way that you plan it. It takes weird detours sometimes, and
Yeah,
that was a curveball for me, and one that's followed me around my whole life without me really wanting it, if you know what I mean.
yeah.
So I do understand that, and even now, I do get when I play gigs, and so on this last one, I kind of used this line where I was like, "Okay, hands up, how many of you wives dragged your husbands?" Uh, and then afterwards, I'll talk to these guys. I'll be sometimes at the bar, or if I'm doing a signing or something else, and the guys will come up to me and they'll be like, "You know what? I thought you were going to be rubbish, but you were all right. You were all right."
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm kind
Yeah.
of like gigging. My gigs are like I'm grabbing one bloke at a time.
You're
There's a
changing
lovely.
everybody's perceptions on a daily basis.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's what I'm hoping, because people do have preconceptions, and it's funny, and I've learned from that because I
Mm.
feel like I've been judgmental at times with certain artists, and and then got to meet them and know them, sometimes work with them, and then you're like, oh, actually, there's talent there, and so I understand that feeling. I really do. But I also, having said that, now never judge anyone until I've
Mm.
either seen them live, met them, whatever. And it's just one of those lessons in life, isn't it? So,
It's been called
I saw you on Fake or Fortune, BBC One, because my wife loves Fake and
oh
Fortune
yeah, yeah,
with
Mm.
Fiona Bruce
Mm.
and Philip Mould, and you were trying to find out if this Broadway baby grand piano which had been
Yeah.
your family since the 1970s, had actually belonged to John Lennon.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was an amazing show, and ultimately it turned out it didn't, or maybe it didn't, or they weren't quite sure. But what came across that shocked me was that, first of all, you were such a nice, intelligent person, which I know I should be shocked by. But
Shocking.
secondly,
Shocking.
secondly, yeah, shocking. But you had such a great love and sensitivity and knowledge of music, and I thought this is a great guy. It completely changed my mind. And when I
Yeah.
saw you in the piano room and you're with the BBC Concert Orchestra, and it's all very sophisticated, it totally made sense now. I thought, this is not the Chesney Hawkes that I thought was
Yeah.
Chesney Hawkes.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I totally understand it. And as I said, I'm trying to bring people in, and hopefully they'll come to gigs. I mean, there'll be a million people out there that would never come to one of my gigs, not knowing that they might actually quite enjoy it. So, and by the way, the piano, they never said that it didn't belong to John
Yeah,
Lennon.
yeah.
What they said is that they couldn't 100% prove it because they wanted like photos. They
Fingerprints
wanted
would have helped.
They
fingerprints would have
did,
helped.
they,
Yeah, yeah.
they didn't have enough provenance. There wasn't enough provenance, Chesney.
Yeah, the provenance wasn't there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But having said that, watch this space. There might be some news about that
Oh,
soon. I can't tell
ooh,
you
that's
anything.
exciting.
Chesney, on
That'd be
that
great.
journey
That'd be great.
from guilty pleasure to national treasure, as it says on the press release, whoever said that's a great line.
Yeah.
But I'm going to throw in, I mean, it's been called a comeback album. So I'm going to throw in man in his 50s making, and it's, as it were, a comeback to, it was, I'm going to throw in the name Rick Astley as perhaps an obvious kind of comparison in
Yeah.
that great singing voice, hadn't necessarily had a hit for a while, but actually there was this kind of guilty pleasure that had sustained through the years,
Hmm.
moves on to the status of the national treasure, and comes back with an album that actually opens up a whole new opportunity, as well as reacquainting with those who liked you in the first place. And I wonder how much you see that as the case. That's why I've drawn that parallel, whether that's a fair one or not.
I would say it's a fair parallel, and it has obviously been mentioned a few times by people in the team that I work with. Because obviously Rick had done it. He obviously made that leap, and managed to kind of come back into the public consciousness and did a great job at it. So it's obvious. It's an obvious comparison. So I totally get where you're coming from. I'm friends with Rick over the years. I've met him over the years, and he's a lovely guy. And I remember when he had that first #1 album after all those years, and I sent him a little text, just said #1 question mark question mark, and he's like, I know, I can't bloody believe it, So good for him. I think he's a great artist actually. He's one of those people that I feel like people have kind of done the same thing that you did with me, Graham. It's pop kind of manufactured. He was Stockaking Waterman, whatever. But he stood the test of time because he's got an amazing voice. He really has. He's got a proper kind of like soul voice.
Doing an album of not an album of Smith covers, but doing
I
that.
think
Smith
Ches
covers.
needs to do a tour of songs by the Smiths.
Yeah, exactly.
I can see it now.
Yeah,
See it now.
The title
Arctic
"Living
Monkeys.
Arrows," Graham.
Oh yeah,
Your question first, and I'll come back to the
it's,
Living Arrows.
it's a
question.
great album, Living Arrows, really
Thank you.
good. And this is a pretentious question,
Oh.
and I know your new album's inspired partly by a poem by Khalil Gibran,
Yeah.
and I've read his book, The Prophet, and it's quite a it's quite a deep, serious book. And I know it's by this great Lebanese American writer poet, and it came out in 1923. Didn't get really famous till the 60s. Lennon used some lines from it on Julia and the White Album, and David Bowie did With the Circle, influenced by him as well, 1970. But for Chesney Hawkes to like be inspired by that great poet, that just shows the depth behind your songwriting.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved Khalil Gibran. I mean, for me, almost a bit of a voice of a nation. And that poem, it's called On Children, very much related to it and got really emotional reading it. I'd read it years ago, actually, as part of his poetry books, but like I kind of rediscovered it, And there's he kind of likens like pulling the bow back. And my kids are at that age of every parent's kind of rite of passage where you have to let them go. So he thinks that the living arrows are your children. You pull the bow back, and then of course you got to let them go. And I liked the kind of analogy of that, but I also liked it with the songs. So kind of you put your blood, sweat, and tears into this music, and these songs are all part of your being in a way. It's like for me, they're very much therapeutic, cathartic, pieces for me. A lot of the songs in there, there's some depth and rawness in there. So, and then you put them out, you pull the bow back, and you let them go, and they go off and they have their own life, and their own connections with people, and so that's kind of why I decided to call the album Living Arrows.
Well, Chesney, you've just asked the question that I was going to ask as to what living arrows were. So now I know that answer. I'm going to ask a different question instead, which is the other quote about the songwriting here is that this is Chesney Hawkes at his most vulnerable, free of inhibitions or doubts.
Yeah.
And that's quite a statement in itself, because I think in any age that we're in, to actually be free of doubts and inhibitions and vulnerabilities, we might assume that we have those when we're young and they go, but actually, there you are now as a parent, a father of three. I think it's an interesting situation where I would suggest that actually vulnerabilities maybe never go away, and therefore it's understandable to still have those.
Yeah.
But to be free of inhibitions and doubts is a good position to be in, to actually be able to say, look, this is how I am. We all do have vulnerabilities, and songs lend themselves to that. So that's that interesting balance between being vulnerable but being free of inhibitions at the same time. How do you feel that's turned into songs?
Well, when it's funny because when I first started writing this album, it was with my mate Jake Gosling, who you mentioned earlier on. I've known Jake since we were kids. He's a Grammy Award winner, but I've known him since we were kids.
Ah, okay.
And we'd written songs together, and my brother played drums in a band with him years ago. And he's a local boy, basically. We've known, and literally our parents knew each other. And he said to me, because he was there through the crazy time with me. How he was in the house when we found out I was number one, and we had this big old party, and he kind of witnessed the whole debauchery and fun madness of that kind of success. And I actually think that it kind of imprinted on him a little bit, and he obviously watched my career because he was there from the beginning. So anyway, we were having a beer a few years back, and he was like, let's do something for you. Because every time I write with him over the last 20 years or so, it's been for something else. We wrote a little thing for Kylie or whatever, just stuff that wasn't like particularly for me as an artist. So he's like, let's do something for you. So we got together, and we just two guitars in his garden by his studio, and we just playing stuff, and this song just popped out. It was like sometimes songs just go, and it was like 20 minutes. We were just talking about our ex-girlfriends and shit, and just crazy ex-girlfriends. And that's what the song ended up being about. A song called Nobody Like You. And because it was so fun, so quick, and recorded within 2 hours, done. And he was like, well, we have to do an album, don't we? So I was like, yeah, we do, So he fit me in between like Sam Smith and One Direction or Harry Styles or whatever, and I would kind of come in for that day and whatever. And it took a long while to do, but what happened was it became not a passion project, more like a fun project, And we wrote these kind of songs that were like kick the doors down, pop bangers. They always had some kind of lyrical bent that was close to me, but it opened the floodgates a bit for me, and I started writing a little bit more on my own, and I was bringing him songs where I had kind of like gone through like therapy by writing them. It was like a cathartic kind of experience for me, and like songs that kind of I had to go there. I had to go deep, and I had to. It was painful at times, writing. Sorry, I know I've gone all blurry there. I don't know what's going on there, but
maybe the voice is blurry. That's the key thing. Chesney.
No, exactly. I'm still there, and so I started and I was bringing these songs to him, thinking that he's going to be like, I'm not sure if it's right for this record, or. but here's the complete opposite, and I was very nervous about releasing some of these songs because they were quite personal, like very personal and very kind of raw. But I realized at that point that that it helped me. So I thought, oh, maybe there's a two-way street on this, and maybe, as nervous I was to put these out, maybe there's something to putting them out and having people hear them, and that's exactly what happened. These songs were well received and everything, but it was difficult for me to talk about and put them out even. But what happened was I started getting messages from people saying, "Oh, thank you for that song, the 13 or whatever. That I went through something similar, or when I was a kid, or there's a song called Loud that is about loss, and it was like, thank you for that song. It it reminded me of my mum who I lost last year, and or my brother died, or whatever it is, and those stories, and I realized, and it was like a collective hug almost, and it was this two-way street of realization that music, art, songs, whatever, they can mean something, and they can help people, and and they may realize, even with my grief that I had about the song Loud with my best friend who I'd lost, it was like it made me realize, oh, I'm not alone in this, because there's other people, of course, that are dealing with grief, and it's one of the things we all have in common as humans, is we're going to lose people along the way. But how great is it that art can help both sides of it, like the person who's written this, and also the person that's listening to this or reading it or whatever. And so, yeah, so for me, songs, the inhibition part is like that first song on the album is called Get a Hold of Yourself, and it's basically about freedom of self-expression. And it's that's what I had in my mind when I was writing it. It's like being free in your own skin and getting to a certain age where you realize that you don't worry so much about what people think of you. That's why I did a video completely naked. I was like, I just want to be liberated. I want to be bold, brave. I don't give a fuck. I'll just do it now. I'm in my 50s, and I whatever. I want to be a role model. I know not getting naked doesn't sound like the right role model for your kids, but in a way it kind of is, because it shows
Two naked men in a small car.
That's definitely no inhibitions. Graham, your question.
Oh, well, I was dying to say something flippant or silly, but I can't really follow that. That's proper stuff from Chesney. That's
It's stopped you in your tracks, that, hasn't it?
I'm still surprising you, Graham, aren't I?
Yeah, completely. It's a complete or amazing transformation. It's like the second coming. It's amazing.
The 180 is amazing.
Yeah,
it's gone
yeah,
from the
yeah.
braggadocio of I am the one and only to actually the reality of our lives as older beings is that we are full of vulnerabilities, of which grief is probably the strongest one of all. You mentioned, I mean, losing a best friend. That would be like me losing Graham. I mean, that, is a hell of a thing to go through.
Yeah.
And I think it's good as a more mature songwriter to talk about that and to sing about it, because we all connect with that. We connect with different things when we listen as young people.
Of course.
But I think it's good to actually make music for the age that you are and reflect the experiences that you've been through. I think it's appropriate to do that.
It's true. I've written with Nick Kershaw for 36 years now. He's one of my best mates. We're co-writing partners for the longest running musical mentor, whatever. And obviously over the years we've written about everything you can possibly think about, and it's funny, we got together last week, and I'm thinking of my next project now. I'm already onto that. So we had this long chat over a glass of wine, and just like, that's the hardest thing. There's what do we write about? We're content, we're I was like, well, I don't know. You could talk. We could go to politics. We both hate Trump. Let's write about that. or let's write about, I don't know, the fact that that your kids are leaving home, and that's an emotion or whatever. But it has to. I can't sing about first love and whatever. It's I can't. It's just not going to, or going to the clubs, or you know what I mean?
It's not going to cut it, is it? It just isn't.
No, he wouldn't do it, and it wouldn't be authentic, and it wouldn't be right. So we ended up writing a song about Trump.
Excellent.
Graham, have you recovered enough to ask a question?
Yeah, well, I think that sort of honesty is going to go down well when Chesney plays the Brudenell in Leeds on March the 12th, because it's a former working man's club, and it's a brilliant venue. It's one of my favourite venues. And everybody in the venue is very close to the stage. So on stage, it's really intimate. So
Yeah.
the interaction between the performer and the audience is very, very close. So that sort of approach is going to go down a storm.
Yeah, I feel like because this particular tour is kind of 400 to 600 cap. It's quite intimate, quite small. I feel like I'm going to be doing a lot more talking and sitting on the edge of the stage and, just kind of. I guess I want people to get to know me a little bit, obviously I'm starting to get the set list together and everything, but I think most importantly that's what I want to do. Just kind of, I don't know, just open up a little bit and kind of relate a little bit. And one of the other things that I love about these gigging nowadays is there's this whole group of people that come to my shows now that were with me from day one, or that remember me from those days, and we're all the same age pretty much, and we've all been through shit, and we've all had been married and kids and done all that stuff, and there's a shared kind of cultural reference thing going on where there's a similar sense of humor, and there's something beautiful about that, and I guess that's with what nostalgia can do as well. And obviously, I want people to come and leave their inhibitions on the door and come and relive their youth and everything,
Not
and have a party.
necessarily go naked though, perhaps, Chesney.
Maybe not as maybe that much inhibition. Yeah. I want everyone to come naked, and we'll all just have a
there
naked.
we are. That's the headline. Graham.
Well, I think Chesney's so good at talking. I think this podcast should be one Chesney a small car, and we should just quit and hand it over to Chesney because he's great at talking. Fantastic.
Chesney, have you ever been to Barnsley, or is this going to be your Barnsley initiation?
No, I will have been to Barnsley over the years. I'm not sure I could tell you any particular stories that I have in mind of being in Barnsley, but I've been to football at Barnsley, actually.
Have you?
Yes, over the years. Big West Ham fan. So,
we won't talk about that as a Leeds fan. I'm not going to be commenting at all on our rivalry for relegation.
I know. Well, I think you look safe now, guys. I think Leeds look safe.
Tempting fate there, I think, Chesney. Tempting.
No.
Maybe. Well, you're safer than we are. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, well, it's exciting stuff in a bad way.
Yeah, no, exactly. Right on the edge of your seat for the whole time. Nothing worse.
So you'll have been to the London Stadium?
Yeah, many times. Yeah.
It's still not convincing as a football stadium, is it?
Not really. The atmosphere was apparently, I wasn't there actually. The atmosphere was great the other day at the Man United game. It felt like a cup game, a cup final or something.
Yeah. Nothing compares with the bowling, I'm afraid.
No, there's nothing quite like it. Yeah.
I remember being in a bus that got stoned on the way towards the ground. I wasn't a player in the team.
Good times.
We were simply arriving as fans in a bus.
Good old days.
Stone still with us. Anyway, we
digressed. No, it's good. I like a digression.
Graham, you got a last question for Chesney?
Have you got any great musical ambitions after this album? Are you thinking of doing writing a musical or some radical change of direction?
I have written a musical actually. That was just before COVID, and I had. It was very loosely based on my life, about a young kid that had one big hit and then went off and took a load of drugs and came back to a completely different world. And so I did. That was actually starting to do well. I had production. I had investment. I had a director. It was all happening, and then COVID happened, and it all went to shit. So that's still in my pocket. What other musical ambitions? I want to make a country album. That's something in me. Yeah, it's not going to be this next.
Would you go to Nashville?
Maybe. I grew up in Nashville. There's something not a lot of people know about me.
Not a lot of people know that. I didn't know that.
No, I moved there with my dad, left the Tremolos when I was 5 years old and moved to Nashville to make a country album with MCA Records. And we stayed there for like nearly 5 years. So my formative years, as in 5 to 9, 10, I was in Nashville, Tennessee, so first music I ever really heard was like Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, all those great kind of outlaw country. So I have that. There's a little old country heart in there somewhere.
Well, they're the songs of heartbreak and joy, aren't they? Or more heartbreak than joy,
exactly.
maybe. But you can
Four chords and the truth.
I can see the sense in doing that.
Yeah, there's something there, and it's something that I've been thinking about for about 10 years now. And I always thought I would get to 50 and do it, but I'm already 54, so maybe I'll do that after I'm 60. That's where maybe that's it. Yeah.
Splendid. Well, Chesney, thank you so much for your time today. Really, really appreciate it. Various revelations I was not expecting. Country album possibility. Getting naked, wasn't expecting that. Glad we didn't get an invitation to join you in doing that. But thank you so much. And just a reminder to our listeners that the chance to see Chesney, 2 gigs in Yorkshire, Leeds Brudenell Social Club, March the 12th, and Barnsley, the Birdwell venue, on March the 15th. Enjoy those dates, Chesney, and thank you so much for your time.
No, thank
Cheers.
you for having me, boys. I'm glad I turned you round, Graham. And please come to the
I
gig.
honestly am a born again fan. Very impressed.
Love it. Well, then my job here is done, boys.
Splendid. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Cheers, Chesney.
Thank you, Chesney. Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
now.
See you on tour, lads. Bye now.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. He was very good, Charles.
That was thoroughly enjoyable, Graham. Really, really
What an
enjoyable.
interesting guy for a foppish pop sensation as a teenager. He's
Yeah.
certainly scrubbed up well.
Still looking in great nick, actually, isn't he, to say the least? So yeah, so that was one of those ones. I'm really pleased actually that we can have such variety, because just to remind our listeners that not that long ago we interviewed one of the members of Black Lace, and I'm not saying it's a parallel story at all, but I don't think it is. But it was very interesting to talk to someone, a life in music, but a life where people may have pigeonholed in one way, and actually there was a whole deeper, wider story to tell. And I think that's what's played out again in the interview there with Chesney.
Yeah, he's lived a great life, much more interesting than you'd expect.
Yeah. So, Graham, I think there were 2 other topics that you wanted to close up
As
this.
time wends on, it's going to run out of time, Charles.
What time have we got left, Graham? Because I've lost
I
all
would
sense
guess
of
about
time.
5 minutes tops.
Okay, well, let's see whether we can find your questions.
Well, one battle after another. You know how I'm always right
Oh, that was the first one
until
we
I'm
wanted
wrong.
to talk about.
Until
I
I'm
was
wrong.
rather, yes. Now, because
Yeah,
you quite liked it, but you had reservations. Are you going to
big
have
time.
complete reservations, or are you going to
Uh,
totally like it? Which way are you
if
going?
if if you watch it a second time, it's much better film.
I thought it was all pretty good the first time around. Why
Well,
is it better?
I thought the story was a bit shallow and a bit long-winded.
What did you find that you
Second time
didn't
round,
know?
first of all, the subject matter, between the right-wing forces being horrible to immigrants versus your left-wing anarchist semi-terrorists,
Mm,
that's much more relevant. I mean, the film came out in September last year, but because of Trump's activities in Minnesota in particular, the political battle in the film seems much more relevant. So the film's got a lot more weight to it than it appeared in September, and that's because the times have changed. And also, it's like a companion piece to Inherent Vice, also based on a Thomas Pynchon novel, except darker. It's like a double hander. And if you think about One But After Another, not as an action film or a film with lots and lots of plot, but if you think about like a early 70s elegiac, semi-tragic, sprawling epic
mm,
like Sam Peckinpah's Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, starring James Coburn, Bob Dylan, Chris
yeah,
Christopherson, it makes
yeah.
a lot more sense. It's like the style of the film is very early 1970s New Hollywood, but it sort of meets the skewed humor of the Coen brothers. And if once you get it, it seems a much better film than I thought it was.
I mean,
It's
I
also
don't,
much more, yeah.
I don't think of
I
it
think
as an
it's
action movie. I really don't. I think
hmm.
there's so much more to it than that. There's so much deeper than that as a
It's
film.
also really emotional. It's got a warm, fuzzy emotional feel to it. It's a despite some of the harshness of the subject material, it's a very warm film. And the characters are more rounded than I'd realized. And even Sean Penn playing the terrible right-wing military bigot, he comes across second time round on second viewing much less of a caricature and a cartoon figure, and he comes across much more a real person. And I actually felt sorry for Sean Penn. I won't say what happens to him in the
No,
film
but
because it might
I think
ruin.
he gets a fair hearing in the
Yeah,
film,
but you
and I
feel
think
sorry
that's
for him
the
because
film's benefit as well. That's where it's
hmm,
3D, not 2D. you know,
Yeah,
you
that's
you
true.
use that word rounded character. That's exactly
Mm,
what he is. And I
mm.
think therefore that's really important actually with a character like that, because that is the reality of the situation we're in now. There are people like
Yeah,
him
but
behaving like him,
he,
but it actually shows
yeah.
why he behaves like that. And I'm not saying that's a defense for it, but I think it's
Mm.
important in a film that ties in with what's going on to actually
And
have
he's
a
such a
rounded
square
character.
jawed character. He's so larger than life that he
Mm,
appears to be a cartoon at first
mm,
viewing. But in second viewing, he actually has got more depth to him.
mm.
And I think the film's really full of sadness from a
Yeah,
human point of view at the
yeah,
behavior not only of the terrible right wingers in the film, but also even the well intentioned liberal terrorists.
yeah.
There's a sadness that both of them become hijacked by their own causes when they're actually just trying to be people living,
Mm,
a normal life.
mm.
So it's a very human film, and it's way better than I thought it was.
Well, it'll soon be the season for further uh, giving out of awards. We are awaiting. I think we're still awaiting the BAFTAs, and we're certainly still
We
awaiting.
are, yeah.
We're certainly still awaiting the Academy Awards season. So, and of course, one battle after another is prominently involved in that, in the race for that, and we look forward to seeing what happens with that. And lastly, Graham, and again, I don't know how much time we've got left, but how long have we got, Graham?
But I'm guessing seconds, but I'm only guessing.
Seconds. Right. Well,
We've
we'll
only been
start
doing
the
this for 5
sentence.
years, Charles. How would
Right.
we know something
You've
about
got
that?
an interview with Dave Mattox of Fairport Convention's drummer, and
Yeah, for the
is that in
Harrogate
the Harrogate
Advertiser.
Advertiser this week?
Yeah, it'll be in the next week. I interviewed him earlier this week.
Yeah.
I've got loads of
Where
interviews
and when is
to
he
do for the
playing?
paper. Well, Fairport Convention are back in Harrogate on Tuesday, April. I think it's the 7th
No.
at the Harrogate Theatre. And
Oh.
I said to him, like, well, you know that Fairport Convention are the only other band apart from The Who, The Stones, Macca, Dylan,
Yeah.
and Neil Young from the 1960s still
Mm,
touring regularly.
exactly.
And he laughed when he said that. He said, "You can't compare us to them." He said, you know, compared to other bands, the bank balance we've got is a bit poor. He says the reason that Fairport Convention keep on touring is because they've never had big enough albums to actually not stop touring.
Ah.
They do it. They haven't got the success of those other 60s, 70s bands that are still touring. That small band of brothers. And he said they don't really care for Fairport Convention. He says that Simon Nichols, who's the guitar player of long
Yes.
standing and the singer,
Yeah.
he says we don't bother the music industry, and the music industry doesn't bother us. So,
I would have
which I
thought
thought
that's
was
a
a good line.
perfect situation for them to be in.
Mm-mm.
But then
But Dave Matthews is such a
when you
great
look at the
drummer.
luminaries that have been connected with that band,
Mm.
Richard Thompson, Sandy Denny,
Sandy Denny, yeah.
I mean, two of the most significant figures in folk, and yet Fairport Convention, in their own way, are as valid now as they've ever been. Partly because of Simon, the way Simon drives them, but it's interesting that, and I think the public treats them in that same way as well. That they still want to go and see
Well,
them.
they keep up. They always have more recent songs on their set list. They've never become a
Yeah,
nostalgia band. They never play their. Even if they had greatest hits, they wouldn't play the greatest hits.
no,
Apart from "Meet Me on the Ledge," that's about the only one they always do.
yeah.
But he was on full. He was on 5 Paul McCartney albums. Was Dave Mattox as drummer? 5 McCartney
Oh,
albums, and he's a big McCartney fan. He says he saw him live in Boston because Mattox lives in Boston, Massachusetts now. He saw McCartney live in Boston, and McCartney gave him tickets to make sure he got into the show. And he
excellent.
says that McCartney does not keep on touring for the money, neither do the Stones. He knows these people. He says they keep on doing it because they absolutely love music,
Mm.
which was very
And
nice
that
to
would
hear.
apply equally to Fairport Convention.
Yeah, same
That's what
thing.
they've got in common.
Mm-mm.
Splendid.
Those people are like Picasso. They're going to die with a paintbrush in their hands.
Yeah, or in his case, the drumstick in his hand.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic sub production.